What's going on, guys? We're going to go over the weekly tactical layout for the best tactics. These are going to be just a pure meta tactics, so we're not going to see any fun tactics here. This is just like you want to get the most amount of wins. We know there's a patch coming. We're going to go through 4 tactics and another one as well that I'm going to add in this week. We know there's a patch coming in this week, well, next week, I think they said we're defending. I still think the 4-2-3-1 second variation, the wide one, is what pro players are using and casual players. I also put in the 4-2-3-1 narrow. I made that in yesterday's video. A lot of people are asking me, can I use the 4-2-3-1 narrow with players out of position? No, you can't. So in case you're wondering, oh, can I use the 4-2-3-1 narrow or the wide? Use whatever players you have. Some players like cams like Bon Mati can play those in those narrow systems, but there isn't that many good cams in the game. Marmouche, Dumine, there isn't that many good cams. So that's why I think most people prefer this. I'm using this purely as my defensive setup. I explained this last week, but you can put them on deep line, playmaker, defend. Both of them. I put one of them on build up, one of them on defend. This will be arguably the most defensive formation. Yes, technically, there's people talking about 5-4-1s, but I think CDMs are more important because don't forget, CDMs, they position a bit deeper, whereas center mids, they sit higher. So I probably would recommend CDMs. So this will be, again, this will be the code if you want to add in there. It's Kilo, Capital Yankee, 8, percentage sign, Quebec, Capital Uniform, Capital Whiskey, Quebec Uniform, Golf, Capital Yankee, Zulu. And I'm using defensive approach balanced. I'm not going to deep. The lowest I'm going right now is 45, and the build-up style is counter. You can make the argument to even use short passing, but I think use balanced or counter. Even on like a defensive formation, I still want that counter attack threat. So this would be the formation that I'm probably starting the game out with. I think I'm going more towards this. Then it's the 4-2-1-3. Now, to be honest, I'm not using the 4-2-1-3 as much. I think a lot of you guys that are watching this video will be watching this video, will be using the 4-2-1-3 quite a lot. But I think a lot of pro players are moving towards the higher depth 4-4-1-1s, which I'll explain in a second. But if you want to use the 4-2-1-3, you can go ahead. I'm moving everything now to around about 60 line height balance. That's kind of what I'm using all the time now. I was talking about this last week a little bit, but I think more and more you're seeing people are changing towards that. And I've got the same approach. I've just got one of the players on Box Crasher. Unfortunately, I wanted to give you something new here to try out, but the truth is the 4-2-3-1 and the 4-2-1-3 are just very much up there, and they dominate the top 3 formations in the game, whether we like it or not. I wish I could tell you there was something else to use, but realistically, these are the best. Yes, you could use a 4-1-2-1-2 narrow. I'm not saying you can't. And I think if you play Foot Champions, because it's a bit easier to get 50-0 this year, maybe they should have like a little thing where if you're Division 3 and above, you have an option to play 10 extra games, but that's another thing altogether. But I think a lot of people that were maybe getting rank 5 last year, getting like rank 3 this year, or not the exact equivalent, but let's say someone getting like 10, 11 wins last year are getting about 13, sometimes even 14 wins this year. One of my friends got 14 wins, and I can tell you he's definitely not a good player. He doesn't even listen to me when I coach him because he thinks, why should I take advice from my friend? But anyway, that's a bit of a joke. Anyway, look, but yeah, 4-2-1-3 still up there, still one of the best formations, the best counter-attacking formation per se. Much more attacking. I've got the Shadow Striker on the cam, but both of these four, like if you had to choose, basically, I would say either of these. And if you wanted to, you could use the 4-2-3-1 narrow. Again, I'm only going to give meta tactics here. I'm not going to give you no experimental because let's be realistic. At least for the few weeks, get the most amount of wins, make the most amount of money. Then you can start experimenting. This is what I'm using a lot of the time is the 4-4-1-1 counter. Now, the defensive approach I was talking about high last week, I'm going towards 60. I think for most pro players, they're probably using something very similar to this. The only thing I would say that if you're watching this, you may want to put your Shadow Strike on a playmaker and maybe put one of your center mids on a box to box. I think if you're watching this and you're an elite player, this would be the pro layout. So what you're seeing right here is the exact system that a pro player would use. Maybe they would just put playmaker on the cam, but the rest would be identical. You got one of them on a winger, one of them on inside forward. That way you got 2 different types of movements. But I think putting 2 players on, I'm seeing a lot of people saying, oh, 2 players on playmaker, is that too attacking? You're probably quite right. I mean, you might see most pro tactics is a 4-4-1-1-2 playmakers. I'm doing the same. You can make this a bit more tame down, and you can have like a box to box. But I would say if you're watching this and you know you're struggling to defend, don't forget when I make these videos, you might be watching this, you might be an elite player, you might be watching this, you might be a Division 6 player. I got to make this for everyone. So that's why I tell you these adjustments. Only someone who has no idea will just copy the tactics and then hope for the best. But if you want to be a bit more on the safer side, go with a holding center mid. But I would say 2 box to boxes also work quite well in this formation. All the codes will be on the website, but that will be the change that I'll make. But again, I'm not using balanced, even though the pros are using balanced. I'm using counter, and I would recommend you to do the same. The only reason why they don't use it is because they use a lot of player locks, a lot of L1 triggers. And the defensive approach, I've gone with 60. And I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to be honest. I'm actually starting the game with this formation. This is the formation I'm actually starting the game with a lot of the time. So maybe these 2 formations I still use, but I want to be honest, me personally speaking, I start with this one. That's where my level is at. But I think the 4-2-3-1 wide is a very good formation as well to start the game with, especially if you don't know what to take from your opponent. Don't forget, if you're going to be versing a better opponent, a formation might give you 10% difference realistically, right? But they're going to still beat you. Same way if you beat someone that's a lesser player, then you can use any of these formations. You're probably still going to win. Then the 4-2-4. So I wanted to go over 2 things. I'm actually using the 4-4-2 regular. So let me explain to you what I've been doing recently, okay? I did it on my main account. This is my RTG. I'm actually using the 4-4. You know, you might have seen the pro player who got the 15-0 with a bronze team. And that just shows you. As I said to you, I'm moving all my formations to 60 like so. And then I've got counter balance. And then what I'm doing is I'm putting both of these on inside forward. Like so, inside forward. And then what I'm doing is advance forward. I'm putting one them on advance forward and one them on poacher. And get rid of this support. I don't want that nonsense. Like this. That's the way that I'm doing it. And then what I'm doing for one of my center mids, I'm putting them on a box to box. And the other one, I'm putting on a playmaker. So something similar to something like this. Fullbacks, I'm just leaving them on fullback defend because look, I already have players in the middle going forward. Okay, and you have to understand. Think about this. Where's the most places that you concede goals? It's counters, through balls in behind. So if most people are playing a 4-2-1-3 or 4-4-1-1, they could have 4 players staying forward. I don't want to get countered. So I'm keeping my back 4 in line, but the rest of my midfielders, they can join the attack. So what I'm using this is, let's say, for example, I want to be a bit more attacking, but I need 2 strikers. Now, why this is so important is all these strikers, although a shadow striker technically plays as like a second striker, these are all 1 striker formations. And what you're going to find on the higher end is 2. Remember I told you in the beginning of the game, people are holding the ball a lot. You're going to see this a lot. People say, now I'm seeing this. Now you know what I mean. Holding the ball in elite division, it's a disaster. People are just holding the ball the entire time. It's too hard to press. So what I find myself is I'm using this formation, when I need to be a bit more aggressive. I'm not saying I'm going out all out to press, but I'm saying I need to press a little bit more manually. That's why I want center mids, but I need 2 strikers. Why do I need 2 strikers? Because if someone is smart, they're going to use a back 4 and they're going to sit back with 2 CDMs. The problem is if I only have 1 striker inside the box, my 1 striker has got 2 players next to them. Whereas if I've got at least 2 strikers, at least when I rotate the ball around the midfield, I've got different angles to get the ball towards the striker. Does that make sense? Because 1 striker is isolated. You got 2 CDMs. But when I've got 2 strikers, at least I can go left, I can go right, I can rotate the ball, because that's what's happening on the higher end. So I've got, I would say, a balanced 4-4-2 is what I'm using. Took a bit of inspiration from the pro players. And of course, the guy 15-0. Check out that video with the bronze team. Absolutely insane. But I actually really like the 4-4-2. As I said to you, this will always be their top 5 formations. You don't have to even think about it. Every year is going to be there. Same with 4-2-3-1. But then what I'm doing then is I'm creating a separate tactic. So you know how yesterday I mentioned, or not yesterday, there was a few days ago that I mentioned I've got some 4-2-4. So what I'm doing now is this will maybe only really apply for people on the, I would say, on the higher level. Like, how do I say this without sounding a bit too good too big for my boots? But when you're up against someone who's holding the ball very well, it's very hard to get the ball, and I feel like you need some sort of very high pressing formation. I feel like with the weaker players, you can go in and press them. But I feel when you're up against someone who's like a rank 1 player, a fellow elite player, you can hold the ball very well. And once you get to these mechanic abusing levels, honestly, there's people headering the ball back to the goalkeeper. I experienced that last week. Honestly, like it's a disaster. So I'm going with something like this, and I'm going with like not false nine poacher, and they go both these on playmaker, and I'm putting these on balanced. This is what I'm doing to basically just press the ball. So this is like my not all out attack. Technically it is, but this is just to I need to press the ball as soon as possible. That is why I've gone with this system, because also it depends what plays. If you use a 4-1-2-1-2, have a 4-1-2-1-2 narrow and have a 4-1-2-1-2 wide. But me personally, I'm starting the game a lot on this 4-4-1-1. Only if I know I'm up against some nonsense, or maybe I'm winning and I don't want to get kick off or something, then I might use these formations. I'm probably having a bit more fun with the 4-4-1-1, but I would say most of the time I'm starting with this one. Let's say I'm winning 3-0, and you know in this game, even when you're winning 3-0, there's no guarantee it's going to be a win. 3-0 just means that someone could probably score 3 goals in 15 minutes. Then I would normally go towards these two. The way I see the 4-2-1-3 is, let's say my opponent is playing counter-attack, I normally match them. So if they're using 4-2-1-3, I do the same thing. I feel like that works quite well. So that's the way I'm using these two formations. You may start with a 4-2-3-1 second variation, but I'm trying to explain to you how I use it. And that way, if you are going to copy me or you're going to take some influence, just take that into consideration. And then a 4-4-2 flat, I've been using it to Pub-stomp. I'm going to be a bit for everyone that's like rank 3 and above last year. Weekend league is easier, and the reason for this is because before you had to play playoffs. Playoffs are basically gone, and now the threshold has been opened up and is being wider for people that can enter the FUT Champions. So now in a pool of players like Division 4 and 5, 6 players that couldn't get in last year are now entering the pool of players and FUT Champions. So yes, there are going to be some challenging games, but if you really do sweat, I think it's easier for you to get the 14s and 15s. I've seen a lot of people in the elite division last year getting 15s. Weren't getting 15s last year, getting 15s this year, and I'll get maybe 12 or 13. But it can also depend on matchmaking. Look, you could verse 15 players that are rubbish, or you could verse 2 pro players in a row, and then you're basically going to get guaranteed 13 and 2. But I'm using this a lot to kind of like Pub-stomp. So let's say I'm playing against someone who I know is much weaker. I feel like with 2 strikers, I really think it's the meta now in terms of attacking inside the box. Whether I'm using a shadow striker, but I'll be honest, try 2 strikers. If you're struggling to attack, don't go towards a 4-4-1-1. Go towards a 4-4-2 and have 2 strikers. Don't forget, you got 1 playmaker that kind of acts like that cam anyway. Just trigger them forward. So I would say use the 4-4-1-1 maybe to start the game, and then use this. If someone is weak, I'm going to this straight away, and I'm doing a lot of manual pressing. And let's say, for example, I'm losing now, let's say maybe not 1-0 or 2-0, but let's say it's 3-0, or maybe it's 2-0, but it's like 70, 75 minutes, and I need to get the ball back as soon as possible, then I'm going to this. So for most of my defensive approach, unless I'm playing a bit defensive, it's 45. Otherwise, I'm preferring a 60 because you sit higher up the pitch. It allows me to press the ball higher, and I know when to run back in behind if a through ball is coming in behind. And then I have the all-out attack formation, which I'm using defensive approach high. And then I'm also using the team press D-pad tactic as well. So that is currently what I'm going with. I'm going to be honest. This is like the most meta layout that I really wanted to give you. And I didn't want to just, as I didn't want to throw some nonsense in and be like, yeah, go use anything. At the end of the day, you know me, I'm trying to give you the best amount of wins as possible. The solid is not that much fun things here in this system. And don't forget, if you want to get better FC26, you can come join my Patreon. So it's patreon.com/nilguides. We've got the timeless fundamentals for anyone that's new to the game, or if you're an existing user. But I think there's 2 things people are doing right now. The meta mechanics. You want to know how to score the goals. Easiest way to break down defensive lines. This is why 2 strikers are important. If you're part of the Patreon series, there's a reason why I said 2 strikers are so important. Watch that video. I'll explain how to score very easy goals and beat your opponent's defenders where they can't defend against it. But we've got all these other mechanics as well if you want to improve. And let's say, like, you know what, Neil? What about the basics of the game? What about defending? Of course, we are uploading defending videos as well. We've got the defending series, FC school series. We've got loads of videos how to defend. And of course, all of last year's videos as well. And we've got some other videos. We've got analysis. We've got some pro player analysis as well coming from Stingray. We're going to be analyzing some of his gameplay. We did Impact's gameplay, the pro player, how he elastic dribble like a pro. And we've got so many more videos. Don't forget, if you don't get bet after 1 month, we'll refund your money. You can join right now. Join a weekend league right now. Join right now. Give it maybe a few couple of days. You'll probably see a big difference. If you don't, we will refund your money after 1 month. That is the nil guys guarantee. You literally got nothing to lose. And I'll be honest, we probably got tens of thousands of people over into the elite division over the years. That's the nil guys guarantee. Links down below in the description if you really want to take your game to the next level for less than the price for Nando's meal nowadays, when Nando's was fucking 24 quid. Absolute joke. Anyway, thanks for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace.